Hey everyone, this is Keith the Old Bard, and welcome back to the Old Bard's Den. So I have tried to start this video like 100 times and trying to figure out the flow of how I was going to do the game and keep track of things and explain things in detail, and then it got to be where I was focusing way more on trying to explain things than actually playing, and that was hindering my flow. So what I've decided to do instead is I'm just going to start playing, and when I edit the video together, then I'll add any specific things that I didn't call out while playing, versus trying to stop, explain, show, move on, etc. So I think it'll be a lot easier to just kind of get moving with the game and fill in the details as we go along. So one thing I do want to show you before we get started is I've created this form fillable version of Mythic's adventure journal and adventure lists, and I've kind of pre-populated it here for our first scene. So I've got a scene summary in here to kind of get things going. By default, the current chaos factor is 5, and I've filled in a few things for the adventure lists. For the threads list, I've got one thread right now, which is redemption for Roland, and on the characters list, I've got Eldrin Thorn, who's the town leader who founded Thornwood and has exiled Morn, and I also have the town of Thornwood here as well. So with that said, we can just move forward and start playing, and as I said before, I'll fill in any specifics when I edit the video together. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to my maps real quick, and here we've got this map that I generated using Dungeon Alchemist, and this is basically going to be the town of Thornwood. It's at night, it's in ruins, and Roland is here being escorted out of town by Eldrin. So as I noted, we've got our first scene set up, and the first thing that we want to do is test this expected scene in Mythic's terms to see if the scene plays out or if there's some kind of adjustment for it. Switching back to the table, we open up Mythic here. So to test the expected scene, we basically want to roll a d10 and compare it to the current chaos factor. The current chaos factor is 5 right now, so let's roll. And we got a 1. So that we rolled odd, so that means it's going to be an altered scene. Now, Mythic covers various different ways you can handle altered scenes, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll on the scene adjustment table and see what my results are. So for that, we need to roll another d10, and we got 7. All right, so 7 is make 2 adjustments. That means we need to roll twice adjustment table again and do those 2 things. So here's the first roll, which is 5, which is remove an object. Okay. And 1, which is remove a character. Okay. Well, as far as our first scene is concerned, we've got Roland, we've got Eldrin, right? We're going to be removing one of those characters, and then we need to remove an object. Now, I don't know that much of that makes too much sense, except for let's just say that Eldrin just suddenly says, "Get out of here," and runs off. So we'll just go ahead and get rid of Eldrin here. Yeah. And we'll determine, does Roland move on out of town, or does he try to sneak back into town? Well, considering Eldrin is pushing Roland out, I'm going to say it's probably very likely that Roland could try to sneak back into town. So going with the current chaos factor of 5 and the fact of very unlikely, let's just say, does Roland try to sneak back in town? We'll roll a 1d100 here, and the result is 53, which is definitely under 84, so that's a no. But it's not 15 or lower, or 15 between 15 and 3, so it's not a no but, right? So Roland does not try to sneak back in town. Alright, so let's just say that right outside of town, there's a field. Add Roland on here. Let's just say that he's kind of crossing through the woods just outside of town, entering into this area here. So, Roland's just kind of wandering aimlessly, just been cast out. Let's say that as he moves across this grass field, we'll determine if he has any type of encounters. And I'll say that it's probably pretty likely that he would have an encounter traveling through the wilderness. So I'll just go ahead and say that it's going to be likely. We'll roll a d100, and our result is 87. So that is a no. Okay, so no encounters here. However, let's determine... he's traveling west right now. Let's just determine the number of days he might travel before he runs into another town. So, to do that, I'm just going to roll a d6, and we'll determine how many days away of travel it might be before he runs into another town or something. So, got 1 day of travel. So I was going to use the number of days to travel to determine the number of times we would roll to see if he would have an encounter. So we're going to at least roll one more time. So once again, pulling up the fate chart. Our chaos factor is 5, and I'm going to say it's, nearly certain that Roland's going to have some type of encounter while he's traveling throughout the day to the next town. So we'll roll. So for nearly certain, with a chaos factor of 5, he needs to roll 85 or under, or a yes that he's going to have an encounter. So we're going to roll one more time. And this time we got 43. So that's a yes. He does, in fact, have an encounter. So since he's going to have an encounter, I'm going to use a tool that I wrote that will generate random encounters for me. I'll go into more details on this later, and you can actually download this from my Patreon site. But I've set up a characters file, which basically just lists Roland right now at level 1. And I'm going to specify that the environment that he's in is in a forest. So currently the bestiary settings that I have set is just looking for the monsters in the D&D 5e monster manual, the 2014 monster manual. Here we go. So Roland comes across 3 commoners and a badger. So we're just going to use the same map that we have set out. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and place these commoners onto the map here along with the badger. 1, 2, 3. We'll add the badger. Alright. I'm going to rename these so they're easily identifiable between them. C1 for commoner 1. 2. And C3. And the first thing that I want to do is I want to kind of determine how far away they are from Roland. So I'm going to say from where Roland is, I'm going to roll a d20 to determine the number of battle grid squares these commoners are away from him. In this case, we got 18, although that's 16. All right, so 16. So, all right, so I'm going to say they're all grouped up together, coming along the path. Now let's determine how far away the badger is. 11. All right. Now I could have rolled again to kind of see how far apart the commoners were, but I'm just going to say they're grouped together. And since no one was really trying to be stealthy, I'm going to say that the commoners were not being stealthy, and Roland certainly wasn't necessarily being stealthy, that no one is surprised. So let's go ahead and roll initiative. So first up, we're going to roll for Roland. Now Roland has an initiative modifier of +2. So that's going to be 18 for Roland. Go ahead and write that down. So commoners have a dex modifier of 0. So that's going to be fairly easy. So for commoner 1, we've got 16. For commoner 2, 18. For commoner 3, 14. For the badger, they also don't have a dexterity modifier. So the badger gets 8. Now again, I don't know the specific reasons why all of a sudden this badger wouldn't be involved in this encounter, but let's just say that as Roland was traveling in, it pissed it off. He wasn't necessarily with the commoners, but you know, nobody messes with the honey badger. So now that we've got that sorted out, it's still going to be Roland up front, and then commoner 2, followed by commoner 1, and then commoner 3, and then lastly the badger. So, what is Roland going to do? Is Roland going to rush in and attack, or is he just going to try to stay hidden here? We probably didn't necessarily need to roll for combat, right? It could be just Roland's encountering them. He may want to try to speak to them. So maybe we should leave that up to Mythic. So bringing up the Mythic chart, let's see here. Should Roland attack? Let's ask that question, right? So does Roland try to attack, or does he try to talk? So first, does Roland try to attack? So that's going to be 92. I'm going to say it's 50-50, right? So if we look at the fate chart for chaos factor of 5, a 92 actually is within the exceptional no column. So 91 would be an exceptional no. So let's say that Roland's definitely not wanting to attack these guys. In fact, he doesn't want any type of conflict right now. So he doesn't attack, but let's say, in fact, he tries to talk to them. So let's say Roland moves in a little bit, so the commoners can see him. He's got his hands raised in the air, kind of hollers out to the commoners, hey, I don't want any trouble here. So Roland's going to try to persuade them, right? So he has a persuasion modifier +5, so let's roll to see how persuasive Roland is. For that, he gets 14. Wait, is that? Yeah, 14. And I'll say that's pretty persuasive. The commoners now don't think he's necessarily a problem, right? So I'm going to take them out of combat. However, this badger This Badger, he doesn't play around at all. Badger can move 20 feet, so he starts to run up on Roland. Moves 20 feet, doesn't exactly reach him. I'm going to take the commoners out of combat here, so now it's just the Badger and Roland. Roland's turn now. So Roland's going to attempt to strike the Badger with his dagger. Alright, so a d20. That is 6 plus 4, which is 10. So Roland does in fact hit the Badger. Let's see what his damage is going to be. It's going to be 1d4 plus 2. Get out our d4 here. And that's going to be 4 plus 2, so that's 6 points of damage to the Badger, which totally annihilates the Badger. So we're just going to mark this guy with a red circle indicating that the Badger is dead. Now, the Badger gave us 10 experience points. So we'll go ahead and add that to Roland's experience here. 10. Okay. So since Roland managed to persuade the commoners that he didn't want to fight, they kind of meet in the middle here, let's say, right? And say he asks them where they're coming from. And let's say that they tell him they're coming from the town just to the west. And let's determine what that town name is. To determine the name of the town, we're going to roll from the Great Book of Random Tables by Dice Geeks. But beginning on page 140, we've got 5 different tables to roll from. So I'm going to roll a d6 to determine which specific table we roll on. If we roll 6, then that's going to be 5. We rolled 6, so we'll go to table number 5. And we'll roll d100 there. And our result is 45. So the name of the town is going to be Overstone. All right. So let's take a couple of moments and actually go update our notes. So I've added Roland is escorted out of town by Eldrin Thorn. He starts heading west and encounters 3 commoners from Overstone and a Badger. He convinces the commoners that he doesn't want any trouble and eliminates the Badger that tried to attack him. And since we have the name of a town that we're heading towards, I'm going to go ahead and add that here as well to our characters list. And then Roland proceeds to tell them that he's just been cast out from Thornwood and he's seeking redemption, looking for valiant things that he might be able to accomplish. So Roland's going to ask the commoners if there's anything possible in Overstone that he might be able to assist with. So let's say that there's going to be a 50-50% chance that the commoners do have information that would be helpful to Roland. And that's going to be 92. 92 again, so if we look at our chaos factor, 5, and for 50-50, we've got 92, so that is an exceptional no. So I'm going to say that the commoners say that, Overstone is pretty peaceful right now, and in fact, there's no desire at all in the town for any type of trouble, and that he should probably look elsewhere. So with that information in mind, Roland has to consider should he continue heading towards Overstone or look elsewhere, right? Considering that there's no trouble in Overstone right now. So let's roll to determine if he continues on to Overstone. Keeping all of those things in mind, let's say that it's very unlikely that Roland would continue on to Overstone. So 1d100, that's 72. So very unlikely he needed to roll 25 or under. So no, he does not continue on towards Overstone. Okay, so which direction should Roland head then? If he doesn't continue west towards Overstone, he's either going to go north or south. And just note that I updated the notes to include that Overstone is about a day's travel west of Thornwood. And we'll use that information to go generate a world map at a later time. So let's see. To determine whether he's going to head north or south, let's roll a D100, and if it's 51 or higher, he heads north. If it's 50 or lower, he heads south. All right, so we got 26. So Roland is going to head south. And once again, we'll roll a D6 to determine how many days travel it would take before he runs into another town or something, right? So we rolled 6 again. So 6 more, 6, well, we rolled 6. So that's going to be 6 days of travel. So we're going to ask Mythic once for each day if Roland runs into an encounter. And we'll stop rolling if we get a yes answer. So bringing up Mythic, I'm going to keep track of the number of times we roll each time to determine if we have an encounter or not. So for day 1, let's say it's still very likely that he's going to have an encounter over the next 6 days worth of travel. So very likely, in order for it to be a yes response, it's going to need to be 75 or lower. So for day 1, we've got 46. So real quickly though, let's make a note that on Roland traveled for half a day before he met the commoners, right? So he met the commoners about half a day later, right? After leaving Thornwood, considering there was probably nothing he could do to help in Overstone, he heads south. And after about a day's worth of travel south, he has another encounter. Now, an encounter doesn't always have to be combat, but we're going to go ahead and use the encounter generator one more time to see what Roland actually comes up against. So I'm going to leave it the same settings as before. Give that a run. And we run across 3 lizards. And as you can see here, this should be a medium encounter for Roland. So I've got another just empty grass area here that Roland's going to be in. We're going to move him to the top because he's heading south from where he was. Let's go add 3 lizards onto the map. Not giants, there we go. 1, 2, 3. All right, now let's determine how far away from Roland they are. So at least 12 spaces on the map. So I'm going to roll a d12 to determine how far south of Roland they are. So that's going to be 6. And that's about where they are right now. Let's just say they're kind of spread apart, right? Not going to necessarily roll for their positions right now. And if we look at the stat block for a lizard, we can see their armor class is 10, hit points are pretty low, so this should be, quote, should be a quick battle for Roland. So let's go ahead and roll initiative for the lizard. So their dexterity modifier is 0, so it's going to be a straight d20 roll. So for lizard 1, we've got 7. For lizard 2, got 19. For lizard 3, we've got 7. And finally, let's do a roll for Roland. And I believe he's got +3 for his dex, right? Oh, it's initial. Yeah, +2. Okay. So for Roland, we've got 20. All right. So order of combat is going to be Roland, followed by Lizard 2, Lizard 1, and Lizard 3. And let me go ahead and name these guys so we've got those sorted out. Alright, so Roland's up front, and he's going to try to do the most amount of damage that he can in one turn. So I think we're going to have Roland cast Thunder Wave. So we're going to get him right up against number 2 here, kind of put him in that area. And Thunder Wave, get it up here, casts a 15-foot cube originating from the creature. So I'm going to go place a template down here that gives me a 15-foot. Make it 15 feet. And then we'll center it on Roland. And that wouldn't exactly get all 3 of them. So let's have Roland move a little bit to the left here. And at least where you can get a couple of these lizards, number 1 and 2. So since we're going to be manually rolling for the spells, I'm going to go ahead and deduct one of my spell slots. And what needs to happen is each creature in the area of effect needs to do a Constitution saving throw and beat 13. So as we can see here, the lizards don't have a modifier for their Constitution. So we're just going to roll 2d20s for Lizard 1 and 2 and see if they can beat 13. So for Lizard 1, we've got 1. He definitely doesn't beat. Lizard 2 doesn't beat as well. So each one of those lizards are going to take 2d8 thunder damage, and since they didn't succeed their saving throw, they're going to be pushed 10 feet. Alright, so 2d8. So let's get our d8 out here. We got 3, and we've got 6. So a total of 9 damage to both of those lizards. Well, you know what? Their hit points are only 2 anyway, so both of those lizards are out. And that would be the end of Roland's turn. So let me get rid of this area of effect. We're going to mark Lizard 1 and 2 as being defeated, which leaves Lizard 3, and we move on to Lizard 3's turn. So a lizard only has 1 action, which is their bite attack, and their movement speed is 20 feet. So this lizard is definitely within range to get up to Roland, and his bite attack is going to be a +0 to hit against Roland's AC of 12. So rolling for the lizard. The lizard rolls 15, so that's definitely a hit. So Roland is going to take 1 hit point of piercing damage. That's simple enough. I just realized I was playing with the character sheet earlier and set my hit points to 0 to test something, so I've reset that back. We're going to deduct 1 hit point from Roland. Now moving back to Roland. Roland's turn. He's right up against the lizard, so he's just going to try to attack him with his rapier. So he's rolls for that and gets a +4. That's going to be, that's 13. That's definitely a hit on the lizard. So the damage is going to be 1d8 +2, which is, yeah, definitely, that definitely killed the third lizard. So go ahead and mark him eliminated. Okay, so Roland gets 10 XP for each lizard, so we're going to add 30 experience to him. Just realized I didn't show my dice tray again. Remember to turn that back on. But let's add 30 experience here. Alright. So Roland has set out. He was heading west, ran into some commoners, was heading west, encountered some commoners, had a small battle with a badger. The commoners told him they were from Overstone, not much going on there. He should probably look elsewhere. So he decided to head south, and on his first day of travel heading south, he runs into these 3 lizards and eliminates them. So let's go ahead and call that the end of this session. Let's make a few notes in our adventure journal. Actually, we'll make a record of this in our notes. What we put in here was about 6 days worth of travel before Roland finds another town or establishment. After about a day's worth of travel, he has another encounter. Let's put with 3 lizards here. And he needs to travel about 5 more days before he finds another establishment. Now, we need to do some bookkeeping for our adventure journal, our Mythic adventure journal, and one of the key things that we want to decide is, was Roland kind of in control of the scene or not? And I'm going to say he wasn't, so that's going to bring our chaos factor up to 6 for the next session. 6. I don't think we need to make any changes to our adventures list. We've got Overstone as an option there, and he's still seeking redemption. So I'm going to say that's probably all we need to do, and we'll wrap this scene up. In the next video, we'll cover setting up the next scene, which is Roland traveling south, and go from there. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.